welcome to the first test run of the Stats and Stacks podcast. We're ready, baby. We're just going to give a quick trial, a quick run through, see how it works out for us. So we are looking at UFC 260, Miocic versus Frankie Murder himself, Francis Ngannou. We got the very first fight of the night. We have Abu Azaitar versus Marc-Andre Barriault. Now, right now, you have Marc-Andre as the favorite. He's not the greatest, honestly. He's somewhat of a generalist. He doesn't have the best wrestling, but he has pretty decent cardio. He seems to pour it on at the later rounds. His striking is at par. His submission game is okay. He's not really a world beater. He has 3 losses in the UFC. He was one of those people that were lucky enough to get that fourth trial in the UFC. And he came out and he looked spectacular. He beat someone that was a little lower level, but he looked really good. He finished them, did what he had to do. Problem is, he popped for PEDs. He also switched camps to one of the camps, I think the best camp in MMA right now is Sanford MMA. So I don't know if it was the PEDs that made him look great or the camp switch that made him look great. Either way, it's now a no contest, and we have no idea what Marc-Andre Barriault we're about to get. On the flip side, we have his opponent, Abu Azaitar, brother of, you guessed it, Ottman Azaitar, the man that got kicked out the UFC for having someone scale and bring him potatoes, supposedly. We all know it wasn't potatoes in the bag. And I would be concerned in regards to Barriault's PEDs, but Abu also is coming off a long layoff because he was on the juice. So Abu is managed. Oh man, look at him. He's got abs and fat at the same time. I don't know what to do about this guy. Listen, Abu is managed by Ali. And when you're managed by Ali, you get the most favorable matchups possible. Honestly, he's not that good. He's kind of slow. He hits really fucking hard. He hits real hard. But at the same time, he doesn't gas, but he slows down in round 2 and round 3. The fighter in round 2 and round 3 is not the same guy in round 1. So I can guarantee you Abu is going to win round 1. And I think this is a perfect live bet opportunity. I think it's a 50-50 fight. I know Abu is even odds. So if you're going to take a shot, honestly, I don't think I would pick either fighter. I think the best bet here is just that it goes the distance. I know right now it's kind of juiced. It's minus 200s, but at the same time, Abu, when I look at his record, he's only been finished once. It's not like he got knocked out or tapped out or anything. It was a loss by cut. Things happen. Here, it doesn't really show what it was, but I know it was a decision based on research. When you go over to Barriault, he's also a very durable guy. He's actually never been finished in his amateur or professional career. When you look at all of his losses, decision, split decision, he's never been finished. So at this point, I would probably, the safest bet here, because both are on the juice and both are a little unpredictable, I think the best is just to go fight the distance and just kind of eat the chalk, honestly. Then we have our next fight of the night. Let's pull this back up. We have the incomparable Shane Young against Omar Morales. First, again, we'll start with the favorite, Omar. Omar's pretty decent. He doesn't have a lot of great wins. He does have a win over Gabriel Benitez, who's a pretty good fighter in his own right. Now, Omar, he had his first ever career loss to Giga Chikadze last fight. This is the first time he ever made it down to 145. He looked a little slower. He seemed to slow down a little bit. I don't know if it's just because he was getting his ass whooped the whole time or if it was because of that cut down to 45. He's 35 years old, so it's kind of a weird time to drop a weight class. But at the same time, it's not as if he has a lot of great wins, but he was undefeated and he looks pretty decent. He's a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt, so if this thing touches the ground, he clearly has the advantage. It's just his wrestling isn't the greatest. He really just kind of depends on his power. I mean, he has a lot, and at the weigh-ins, he did look like 2 weight classes bigger than Shane Young. So I understand why he's the favorite. I mean, Shane Young, he's okay. He's one of those city kickboxing guys where he's a really good striker, but the only problem with Shane Young is he's a better hammer than he is a nail. When someone comes in and they kind of pressure him, he kind of folds a little bit. I mean, even his last loss, Ludovic Klein, granted Klein missed weight. It still only took him a minute to take him out. I mean, generally, he's a pretty durable guy. He lost to the champ, Volkanovski, and he went all 15 minutes with him. I actually think Klein was the first time he's ever been finished. So he's generally pretty durable, but he does have some losses on here. Again, all you have to do is pressure him. And I think with Benitez being the bigger guy, it just is kind of tailor-made for him to kind of go out and kind of get his first featherweight win. Again, this isn't really a fight I would touch. And I even wouldn't touch the over-under on this one because a lot of people think Morales is going to knock him out. A lot of people think Young can outpoint him. I'm kind of 50-50 on it. I'm torn. So if I'm going to do anything, I would take the chalk, do Morales at -195. But the smartest thing is to just kind of stay away from this fight, to be completely honest with you. Then we have good old, I can never say this man's name, Michael Oleksiejczuk versus Modestas Bukauskas. Michael is interesting, man. Michael is a middleweight moonlighting at heavyweight. I'm telling you right now, this man has zero abs. It's very hard to find a UFC fighter without any abs whatsoever. He just looks like someone that would get in a bar fight. But I mean, he's good. He's real good. He's really powerful. I mean, you look at him, he's on a 2-fight losing streak, but he lost to Jimmy Crute, who is a stud. I think he's top 10, maybe top 5 at light heavyweight right now. And he lost to OSP, a former, someone that went the distance with John Jones, someone, a veteran of the game. And he actually went out and he killed OSP. It was a 10-8 the first round, and then he got caught one of those damn Von Flue chokes. I have no idea how OSP pulls those off all the time, so he just clearly got caught. I mean, you look at his UFC wins. I mean, Antigulov is cut and probably one of the worst light heavyweights to ever fight. But again, he knocked him out in 44 seconds. He did what he was supposed to do. John Vellante, not the greatest fighter either. But again, it took him a minute and 34 seconds. The guy has some serious power. He has some really crisp boxing. He is so good. He's just, in my opinion, in the wrong weight class. But he can get away with it with lower competition. And speaking of lower level competition, good old Modestas Bukauskas. He's young. He's a prospect. I just think it's a little too much right now. He doesn't have a lot to offer. He's a purple belt on the ground. And I mean, Oleksiejczuk has zero ground game, but he has pretty decent takedown defense. And Modestas just doesn't have a great wrestling background. So, I mean, it's going to be, if it hits the ground, he definitely has a clear advantage. It's just, I don't think he's able to get it there. And the major problem we have here is that when it comes to Modestas, he has 3 losses, right? They all came within the first 2 minutes of the fight. So you have him losing to Crute again, top guy, very no shame there, but it was 2 minutes and 1 second, and it was a knockout. Jimmy Crute is a submission guy. He taps everyone out. He got knocked out by Jimmy Crute, so that's a little concerning. You look at this fight against John Redmond, he lasted 1 minute and 12 seconds, and then you look at his loss against Pavel, he literally lost in 18 seconds. Granted, that one was a heel hook. It's kind of an anomaly, but he has 3 losses, and he got finished. And 2 of those were by knockout in the first minute, and he's going against an extreme power puncher. I mean, when it comes to Oleksiejczuk, he has no gas. He has no stamina. This dude comes out, he hits hard, and he only has about a round worth of gas. Now, they gave us a gift. Vegas really did give us a gift. I thought for certain it was going to be at the round and a half prop. It's actually at 2.5 rounds. So I think that is quite possibly the biggest lock of the card. Both of them are just brawlers, and there's no way this fight goes longer than 2.5 rounds. It's starting to get steamed. So if you're going to hop on it, I would hop on it right now before you see it at like minus 300. But that is the definition of a lock, that thing does not make it past 2.5 rounds, guaranteed. Then we also have one of the cousins and brothers of Khabib. No one really knows that they're actually related. He just says everyone's related, against Jared Gooden. So when you look at Abubakar Nurmagomedov, he's decent, but he's also managed by Ali, so he has that really soft booking. He gets chin checked a lot, honestly. His striking is not good. When it comes to wrestling, it's decent, but it's not at Khabib's level. When it comes to grappling, it's okay, but he really controls you instead of tapping you out. He's not that good. I'd say Khabib is clearly an A+. This dude is like a C+. He does what he's supposed to do. He's a decent record. He's like 15-3, but he's beating scrubs. And I mean, his fights in the UFC, he lost to David Zawada by triangle. I mean, he's just puts himself in bad situations. He fought one good guy. You can't avoid tough matchups in the UFC. He has one fight in the UFC and he lost. So, I mean, he is just, he was just given a lot of gifts. But when it comes to Jared Gooden, he's an odd case, man. He, first and foremost, always has problems making weight. This guy is jacked for the weight class. How he makes 170, I have absolutely no idea, but he somehow finds a way to do it. Sometimes he misses weight probably about half the time. And even this fight, he did miss weight initially. They gave him an extra hour and he was able to work off the half a pound. He didn't look too bad at weigh-ins, but I mean, I am a little concerned on the fact that he had to run for an extra hour. When it comes to this fight in particular and how he generally wins, this dude hits hard. Again, he went at middleweight for a while and he did not look out of place at middleweight. But when he's at welterweight, he is always bigger than his opponent and he hits harder than his opponent. He has a lot of knockouts, but he also has a lot of submissions, a lot of rear nakeds. If he gets on top of you, he just has a hard squeeze, and he has quite a few guillotine chokes. Which is a little concerning when you see things like Superman punches, guillotines, and knees. That's tailor-made to finish someone that's a wrestler like Nurmagomedov. Now, I would always side, if you go striker versus wrestler, I will always side with the wrestler. The problem is because his last name is Nurmagomedov, they have him at a minus 250 favorite. Again, he's about a C+, C-. He is not Khabib. He is not that good. He benefits from soft matchups. So minus 250, you can't touch. But at the same time, Gordon doesn't offer a lot off of his back. All of his submissions are when he's on top or catching you as you're shooting in. So if Nurmagomedov does secure the takedown, he will just lay and pray on top of him. Honestly, if you're going to bet this fight, I would just bet Gooden inside the distance. You're getting plus 300, plus 400 on some books. That's where the value is. I do pick Nurmagomedov to win the fight, but there's absolutely no way I'm betting it. The only thing I would even think about betting would be Gooden inside the distance to try to get some value, a little bang for your buck. I mean, then you go to the next fight. You have Alonzo Menifield going against Fabio Cherant, a late replacement for William Knight, who did catch COVID. So let's start with Menifield, a former arena football player, and I believe he's in the military as well. He's 9-2. He's not good. He's actually very, very bad. But you look at the dude, and he might be the most jacked man at 205. And he hits like it and he proves it. I mean, this man literally has 9 wins, 9 knockouts, and 8 of them are in the first round. And the only other knockout is in the first 20 seconds of the second round. So either you're getting knocked out by this guy and around anywhere from 1 minute to 6 minutes, or you can outlast him. He doesn't have the best cardio. I mean, he just has a lot of muscle on him. So it's just all that blood pushing. He just cannot handle all of that. So you get this guy in the deep waters, you can break him. We saw Devin Clark do it, but Devin Clark is a collegiate wrestler. And if we're going to be honest, he has a really, really good takedown defense, Alonzo does. Devin Clark, again, a college wrestler and was struggling to take down Menifield. He could not take him down until the third round. And I mean, at that point, it was a gassed Menifield. And then that's when he was able to take him out. OSP, it's the first time Menifield's ever been knocked out. He tried to pace himself. He did not like his first loss, so he came back and tried to pace himself, and that's not the way he fights. It didn't look natural, and he got caught with a check left hook. I mean, it happens, and it's the first time he got knocked out. I don't know how he's going to respond to this. Luckily, he's running into Fabio Cherant. So Fabio, he's younger. He was on the Dana White Contender Series, and honestly, so is Alonzo. I always want to fade Dana White Contender Series guys when they're fighting each other. I'm just going to go with the chalk. Fabio, he doesn't have any impressive wins. His last fight was for an LFA title about 5 weeks ago. He won it, which is pretty cool. But again, when you win an LFA title, you know the UFC is going to give you a call. Problem is, I do not think he was expecting that call to happen in 5 weeks. He's probably too busy celebrating, and he did not make weight this fight. He tried to make weight. I do not blame him whatsoever. He took the fight on like 3 or 4 days notice, and he just spent the time cutting. But he did miss it by about 1.5 pounds. Actually just half a pound. I think he tried, they gave him an hour and then he ended up missing it by 0.5. And he looked tired. He did not look good on the scales. You saw him breathing heavily as he was running, trying to make the weight. He just didn't have enough time. And the problem is he has 0 knockouts on his career record. He has a few like wins via guillotine choke and via rear naked choke. Problem being, guillotines you're not going to catch Menifield with because he's not going to shoot. He's not going to go for a takedown. So get all these guillotine wins are not going to help him. And he has 1 career loss. It's a Kmart, and it was by knockout. So it's a little concerning when you have someone that has a history of struggling to make weight. He misses weight. He looks tired, and he's fighting someone that is a power puncher. It's not a good situation. The problem is Menifield is minus 300, and he is not to be trusted. You cannot trust this man at minus 300. So what I would probably bet is just the under 1.5. A lot of books don't have it out yet, considering this fight just got put together. Whatever it is, it's probably steamed. I honestly probably wouldn't touch this fight, but the 1.5 isn't absolutely terrible. This isn't the scariest fight to touch with the over-under, but it's not my go-to. The next fight on the card, we have the main card, Jamie Mullarkey versus Khama Worthy. I'll tell you what, I am a Khama Worthy hater. I do not think he's any good. I do not think he's UFC caliber. He has 7 career losses, and he was finished in all 7. And the worst case scenario, he got knocked out 6 out of those 7 losses. So when you look at his record, he got knocked out he got knocked out a lot at featherweight. He did fight at featherweight, and he blamed the weight cut on all of those knockouts. He said he just didn't have enough energy. He was too big for the weight class. He was draining his body, and that's why he was getting knocked out. He goes up to 55. He shocks the world and beats Devontae Smith, but he is a training partner with Devontae Smith, or formerly was. He knows how he fights. It's different when you train with someone every single day. You know what they're going to do. He came in short notice, ready to go, and he did catch Devontae Smith. Then he fights Luis Pena, and it was 1-1 going into the third. Luis Pena had a lot of success with the ground game, taking him down and just controlling him. He went for another takedown. He got caught in a guillotine. So he thought he was the best 55-pounder in the world until he ran into Mr. Potato PEDs himself, Ottman Azaitar, and got knocked the fuck out in 1.5 minutes. So I'm not blaming his drained body at 145. I'm blaming his chin. His chin is suspect. He's not good. He's knockout or bust. Either he's going to knock you out. Looking at his record, they're all knockouts. He has 1 submission here, a few decisions, but they're predominantly knockout. The problem is, Jamie Mullarkey, I like him at dog money. He's even now. It got steamed pretty heavily. Now Kamaworthy's only like a minus 115 favorite. And Malarkey's even money. I don't hate Malarkey. I don't think he's terrible, but he's just the definition of a generalist. His last fight against Faraz, he won. Most books say he won. I have absolutely no idea how the judges went against him. Believe me, he won that fight, but he should not have made it that close against that kid. That guy was like 22 years old. He's inexperienced. It was a real sweat, and they gave the young kid the win. But I'm telling you, Malarkey won that fight. Brad Riddell, same ordeal, kind of. He just kind of fights the level of his opponent. He's decent on the feet, but he has no power. He's a decent wrestler. And he's pretty good on the ground. He's just good everywhere. He's not great at anything he does. The way to beat Worthy is to knock him out. And Malarkey doesn't have any knockout power, but I think after a while he can grind them and kind of get them to the ground. If this thing touches the ground, Kamaworthy has a tendency to just kind of accept bottom position and not do much with it. So I think Malarkey can grind out a decision. If I'm going to bet anything, I'd probably just take the shot on Malarkey at even money. It's not like my favorite pick, but he might be one of the best dogs on the card, honestly. He's just good everywhere. He'll be able to handle lower level like Kamaworthy. And then next we have my favorite dog play of the card. We have Miranda Maverick versus Jillian Robertson. Let's start with Miranda. She's a minus 165 favorite. I don't understand why. She's 23 years old. She's real green. She's not that good yet. She's going to be good, but they're pushing her way too quickly. She has one UFC fight, and it's against someone that is now cut because they're not that good. They were not good. And honestly, the fight should not have been stopped. They stopped it due to a doctor stoppage. When it's women's MMA, I have a tendency to stop it a little early. They don't want to see these girls get hurt. That fight most definitely could have continued, but I mean, it was competitive, but I did think she was ahead on the scores prior to. Otherwise, she has a lot of decisions. She has a few submissions on here. She's decent on the ground. And speaking of her ground game, it's just she has nothing to offer off her back. Looking at all of these, both of her losses, she's not a fish out of water on the ground. She just defends off her back. She is not offensive off her back whatsoever. She's great on top. Don't get me wrong. She'll tap you out when she's on top, but on her back, she's just really just defending, and her takedown defense is atrocious. It's not good. But she's a really short, stout girl. Generally, short people are hard to take down, but for whatever reason, she just has really weak hips, and you can take her down pretty easily, which really plays into Jillian Robertson. Jillian Robertson may be the worst stand-up fighter in the flyweight division in the UFC. She has nothing to offer on the feet. She doesn't even try. She just throws some flashy random stuff out there just so that she can shoot for that takedown. And this girl is a terror on top. I mean, speaking of the grappling competitions that Miranda did, her and Jillian were actually at a same grappling competition, and Miranda was a fan of Jillian. So he asked to they have a photo like posing together because Miranda wanted a picture. And I think Miranda may be a little starstruck considering she looks up to Jillian. And honestly, if Jillian is able to get her down, I guarantee you she will control her. I don't think she'll tap out Miranda just because Miranda knows what's going on the ground. She's just not offensive off her back. But if Jillian gets on top, I promise you Miranda is not going to tap her out, and she's not going to get up. Jillian is like a blanket. She does not let you up. And I feel as if Miranda's terrible takedown defense is going to help Jillian. And Jillian being the plus 130 dog, I looked at the over. I don't mind the over. It's like minus 182. But I want plus money. I want to just take the book to town. And Jill is going to help me do it. I'm telling you, I've been a women's MMA like just savant as of late, and I'm telling you right now, Jillian Robertson is going to win this fight, and she's going to win me and other people a lot of money. Then we have our next fight. We have the return of the Sugar Show, Sean O'Malley against Thomas Almeida. Sugar Sean, I am not a fan of the Sugar Show. I think he's overrated. I think he's one-dimensional, but I do think he's at a good camp. When you look at him, you have Casey Kenny, you have Kyler Phillips. I mean, you have a lot of people at around 135, 145 that he's training with every day that are top 10 in their division. He has probably the best camp he can have for his fights with level of competition. I mean, and he's good. He's a great striker. The fight against Marlon Vera, whether it was him rolling his ankle or a check kick, either way, he was winning the fight prior to. We know Marlon's a slow starter. So I mean, it was kind of catered. It was catered to Sean, honestly, that first round. But this fight is also catered to Sean O'Malley. Thomas Almeida, I love the guy, but he has no chin. And he is kind of getting a little washed up. I know he had major eye surgery as of late. So they're kind of feeding him to kind of get the Sugar Show back on track. The only thing that concerns me is the fact that Sean O'Malley is a minus 330 favorite. And he has the biggest chicken legs I've ever seen. Those things are tiny. And he's only had 4 UFC fights. And he had the issue last fight against Marlon Vera where he pinched some nerve or something like that. And he went down and couldn't use his leg. And then when you actually look at he had a fight before that. Was it Quinones? Let's see here. It was definitely a decision. Regardless, he had a fight earlier. Oh, it was right here. Andre Sukutam. He actually tore his ACL during that fight or something like that. And he had one leg again. So, I mean, he's only had 1, 2, 3. He's had 4 UFC fights and he's hurt his leg in 2 of them. So if you think Thomas Almeida is not coming out and just leg kicking the shit out of Sean O'Malley, you're sadly mistaken. And if someone has weak ankles or he's like Steph Curry on an MMA field, I don't like it at all. He's good. He's talented. One of the best at the division when it comes to striking, but he's got weak ankles, bro. I don't know what to tell you. It's very, very easy to exploit. The problem is Thomas Almeida is a shooter box guy. And I see him, I think of Vanderlei Silva, where they're just a berserker style. They charge you. Sean does not like pressure. Don't get me wrong. Thomas Almeida pressuring him definitely could get him a win. Problem being, he does not move his head. He's a little slow plotting, and he just goes in like a wild man. A few people have been matched up with Sean O'Malley that do that exact same thing. Quinones, Eddie Wineland, and he knocked them both out. So this is tailor-made to get the Sugar Show back on track. I think Almeida is not what his record shows. I think he is very good. I know at one point before the Cody Garbrandt fight, they were saying that he was about to get a title fight. He was next in line. He was the next one. He was the chosen one. He was the show. But then that loss to Cody kind of just showed everything. I mean, the kid was 20-0. And then all of a sudden you see all these L's on his record. He got knocked out bad because he does not move his head. He came back and he got a win. Again, the kid packs some power. He's only 29 years old. But Jimmy Rivera pieced him up. Jimmy just can't finish any fights. So he is pillow fist, but he's real good. But I don't think he has any knockouts on his record, but he pieced him up, and he's a wrestler. Then you have Rob Font. Rob Font is the same thing as Sean O'Malley. Really, really crisp boxing, kickboxing, and he pieced him and knocked him out, head kicking punches in the second round. You look at Jonathan Martinez, although I know he just got knocked out by Davey Grant. He's precise. All he does is use precision, and he's a really good striker. He pieced up Thomas Almeida. I mean, Almeida was on a 3-year absence. Again, he had to fix something with his eye where he almost literally lost his eye at one point. But in the same breath, you see a pattern. All his losses are to people that are quick and precise. Cody, Jimmy Rivera, quick and precise. Rob Font, quick and precise. Jonathan Martinez, quick and precise. And you know who else is quick and precise? Sean O'Malley. So I wouldn't bet the Sugar Show considering minus 330 and those Steph Curry ankles. I can't do it. If you're going to bet anything, I guess you bet the under. It's 2.5 because they're lighter weights. Almeida could pressure him, make Sean uncomfortable and kind of finish it. Or O'Malley could just knock him out in 2 minutes considering Almeida refuses to move his head. Either way you want to take it, I wouldn't recommend betting this fight, but if you're going to, I definitely take the under 2.5 if you're going to bet that fight. Then we have the co-main event. We have Vicente Luque versus Tyron Woodley. Let's start with Luque. I think Luque is one of the most underrated fighters in the welterweight division, and he's finally getting his due. He deserves someone like Woodley. He's that good. If you give him a middling person, he's going to finish him every single time. I think he's great, honestly. You look at his wins: Randy Brown, knockout. Nico Price is good, knockout. He lost to Stephen Thompson. They did give him a step up, but Stephen Thompson, I think, is honestly a top 4 guy in the division. And stylistically, Luque doesn't really wrestle. He has decent ground game, but he can't get it to the ground. So if you're forced to stand with a karate expert, I mean, you're kind of expected to get picked apart. But he hung in there. And the thing that concerns me is this Mike Perry split decision. We all know Mike Perry was a fluke. And that's a little suspect to have a split with Mike Perry. But in the same breath, I mean, Nico again, you have Jalen Turner's a good striker. Brian Barberino's good. The problem I have with Luque, the Bilal Muhammad, oh my God, that's an impressive win. Leon, I don't, no shame in losing. Michael Graves, no shame in losing. The problem I have with Luque is every single person on this list I'm looking at, Jalen Turner, Brian Barberino, Derek Krantz, Mike Perry, Stephen Thompson, Nico Price, Randy Brown, every single one of them are strikers. And he can just outlast them. He has constant pressure. Tyron Woodley, on the other hand, can't stand pressure. He crumbles under pressure, but he is a collegiate wrestler. And I look back and I go, you know, he's too old to wrestle. But is he? I mean, I understand that concept. My thoughts are, how is he going to wrestle in this losing streak? Colby Covington, just as good of a wrestler, probably better MMA wrestler. Gilbert Burns, better MMA wrestler than Woodley. Kamaru Usman, better wrestler all around. He was in the Olympics, Kamaru Usman. He can't wrestle these guys. He physically can't. And everyone says you can't let go. I think he was scared of the takedown, honestly, because he knows all 3 of them can take him down and just control him. And you know what? They did. And the other thing I want to mention is Kamaru Usman, champ. Gilbert Burns just fought for the title 2 months ago. Colby Covington was the person that just fought Kamaru Usman for the title before Gilbert Burns. So he lost to the champ, the number 1 guy, and the number 2 guy. It's not like he's going out there and losing the scrubs. I know the Darren Till win was very, very impressive, honestly. That's probably the best he's looked in years. The Damian Maia one sucked. Stephen Thompson, I thought, won the fight, but they gave it to Woodley. Stephen Thompson, they got draw. Woodley actually lost more rounds than he won, but he 10-8'd the first round. So Robbie Lawler, knockout. So Woodley has a really, really strong right hand. And Luque likes to get hit. He does not move his head either. He just pressures, but he's never been knocked out. So you look at it and you think, well, something's got to give. I'm actually going to go with the dog, Tyron Woodley, and only because he has more ways to win. Luque does not move his head, and Tyron probably has the hardest right hand in the welterweight division. If he lets that thing loose, he hasn't the last 3 fights. But again, he's fighting the cream of the crop. If he lets that thing loose and he connects, I think he could be the first one to take out Luque. If he's not going to do that, he could go back to the wrestling roots. Luque is not a wrestler, and Luque has not fought a wrestler. And the other main thing is the fact that Tyron Woodley has not fought a 3-round fight in years. The last time he fought a 3-round fight was against Kevin Gastelum in 2015. It has been 6 years since he only had to go 15 minutes. He can wrestle for 15 minutes. And you know what? All he has to do is wrestle for 10 and survive, in all honesty. So I'm going to go with the dog. Tyron Woodley at plus 200 money is not something you'll get often. But in addition to that, I would even juice it up and go decision because in their careers, Vicente Luque's never been finished. And Tyron Woodley, he's only been finished twice. Colby Covington's was an anomaly. He hurt his rib on a slam with 4 minutes left in the fight, and that was a 5-round fight. The other fight he got finished was against Nate Marquardt. And again, that was the 4th round, and that was back in 2012. So we're talking 9 years ago. And again, that was in the 4th round. This is a 3-round fight. Neither man has ever been finished in the 3 round. So I'll go ahead and stamp another lock on the over 2.5. No matter where it goes, no matter which way it goes, it's going to go over. It's going to go the distance. So if you want to go fight goes distance or over 2.5, I think that's a pretty solid lock on the card. Then we have the main event. We have the champ Stipe Miocic against Frankie Murder himself, Francis Ngannou. Francis is the favorite, even though he's a challenger, even though he lost to Stipe, he's the favorite. And I think it's because he realized he's not a technical fighter. There came a point where he lost to Stipe. He thought that he could just run through everyone. Honestly, he was knocking out everyone within 30 seconds. He thought that he was unstoppable. Stipe humbled him. He did rock Stipe the first round. Let's not forget that. But then Stipe humbled him with the wrestling, jabbed him up a little bit, and continued to wrestle. Then he was gun shy. That Derek Lewis fight, they literally said it was the worst fight in UFC history. I think he wanted to be out technical. He wanted to counter strike, and he was just a little gun shy after he just lost his first fight. After the criticism, after the chastisement, he said, fuck it. And he just started swinging. No technique, nothing to be desired, but it's working when you hit like a truck. Knocked out Curtis Blades, knocked out Cain Velasquez, knocked out Junior Dos Santos, knocked out Rosenstruck. And when you look at the time, 20 seconds, 1 minute and 11 seconds, 20 seconds, 40 seconds. He does not care. He knows if he hits you. There was a sports science, and they said it was like getting hit by a car. Like, he knows if he connects, all he has to do is find you once, and he does not care anymore. When it comes to Stipe, he's going to have to do the same thing he did the first time. Put on his wrestling singlet and go to work. He knows, why would you ever try to stand with Francis, especially as a 38-year-old man? There's no reason for you to stand with Francis. And honestly, when you look at Stipe's losses, Daniel Cormier, knockout. That's to a light heavyweight. Junior Dos Santos, he lost a decision. And then his other loss was Stefan Struve, knockout. And Stefan Struve has like 2 knockouts on his career. If you're going to beat Stipe, he's proven that you can knock him out. And he's going against the hardest puncher in the UFC. I understand why Stipe is the dog. And honestly, after a lot of thinking about it, I'm going to agree with Vegas. I'm going to take Frankie Murder, and I think there's going to be a new champion in the UFC heavyweight division. I understand the Stipe love, and Stipe is getting steamed, but at the same time, I don't think I will ever see Francis Ngannou at a minus 125 ever again, and I'm just going to take advantage of it. You also have the over 1.5, so if you really think Stipe is going to win, or you think because Stipe is one of the best fighters ever, they'll take Francis longer than 40 seconds to a minute, you think it'll take him like 7 minutes? If you don't want to pick a side, you could go the over 1.5. The under is a little shaky, but the over is like minus 130, so it's pretty decent odds. But my pick is officially going to be Francis, and I think he gets it done relatively early here. So that's the first one. We're just going through stuff, seeing how it works. Got to figure out the effects. Got to figure out orders and the notes, but this is the first start. So welcome to Stats and Stacks. And let's get paid, baby.